Hello, I'm Henry, and welcome to episode 0 of Tiny Tank Tournament. For those who don't know, Tiny Tank Tournament is a tournament that I am hosting on the From the Depths Discord server, The Arena, which focuses on small ground combat vehicles. Episode 0 is going to be a showcase video where I'm going to just show off all the entries in this tournament and just list off some basic stats. I'll stop wasting your time now and get started. I'll start with T3H Jimmer's entry, the Divine Light. It costs 1,995 materials, meaning that 5 of them can be spawned in, and he has actually sent 5 separate blueprints to me, which are all the same vehicle, just with different AI setups. It is 6 blocks long, 5 blocks wide, and 3 blocks high. It is the only sci-fi entry in this tournament, and is also the only one using simple lasers, which it has 6 of. Usually this isn't that dangerous, but at this scale, that is actually a really devastating armament. As you can see here, if I activate Mimic Only mode, it is packed full of mimics. Each Divine Light has a different version of this AI setup, ranging from 50 meters to 150 meters, and alternating between left and right side broadsiding. Now, onto Vulcan's entry, which consists of the Bulletstorm and the Decoy. The Bulletstorm costs 2,350 materials, meaning that 4 of them can be spawned in with enough resources to spare to spawn in 1 decoy. The Bulletstorm is one of the larger vehicles in this tournament, coming in at 7 meters by 7 meters by 2 meters. It's electric powered and is probably the most heavily armored vehicle in this tournament, bypassing the no metal stacking rule by putting a layer of lead in between the 2 layers of metal. Now onto its most distinctive feature, its massive armament of 10 autocannons housed in this enormous turret. While this turret is massive, it actually doesn't provide that much protection since it's completely open to the front and has only metal plates to the left and right. Its AI is set up to point at the enemy and maintain a distance of 250 meters. The decoy is quite small, coming in at 5 meters by 3 meters by 2 meters. It is electric powered and is completely unarmed, with its AI set up to charge at the enemy, which is quite ineffective since it doesn't have any rams. Its only purpose is to be a distraction, which I guess makes sense since it is a decoy after all. Now onto Standard Stefan's entry, the AMX-12 2003 Heavy Fire Grenade 3. I'm just going to shorten that down to AMX-12. It costs 2,499 materials, meaning that 4 of them can be spawned in. It is one of, I believe, only 2 vehicles in this tournament that is an even number of blocks wide, coming in at 7 meters by 4 meters by 3 meters. This means that the turret has to be asymmetrical, since obviously you can't put a turret in between 2 blocks. It is armed with a 250mm direct input feeder cannon, firing a slow but pretty devastating HE round. It also has these 3 grenade launchers stuck onto the sides and top of the turret. Harness 1977 sent in the AMX XXL 250 and the, oh dear, Avanceur en arrière. I have no clue how to pronounce that. After Google translating it, turns out it means go back, so I'll just call it that instead. The AMX XXL 250 costs 1,622 materials, while the Go Back costs 1,688 materials, meaning that 4 Go Backs can be spawned in, 2 left variants and 2 right variants, and 2 AMX XXL 250s can be spawned in as well. The AMX XL is 6 meters long by 5 meters wide by 3 meters tall. I think it's a Mimic, but I'm not sure. I couldn't find any tank called the AMX XL 250, though I did find a dishwasher called that. It is armed with a 250mm advanced cannon firing this massive HE shell at 1.9 rounds per minute. The Go Back is this 5 meter by 5 meter by 2.5 meters armored car, armed with this tiny mine. It also might be a replica, but I'm not sure because I couldn't find any tank called this. The AMX is set up to circle the enemy at a distance of 333 meters. The left version of the Go Back is set up to broadside the enemy at an angle of negative 111 degrees and between the distance of 400 and 450 meters, while the right version is set up to do the same thing, just at an angle of positive 111 degrees instead. Oh, thank God, finally an entry which I can actually pronounce correctly first try. Now onto the Sherman Firefly, which is Nutterchap's entry. Ignore all these other ones, they are his old entries. He's only submitting this one. It costs 3,322 materials, meaning that 3 of them can be spawned in. It is 7 meters long, 7 meters wide, and 4 meters tall, meaning it is actually the maximum size allowed in this tournament. And it's a very mimic-heavy replica of the Sherman Firefly, which is a World War II tank. It is armed with a 250mm advanced cannon, firing armor-piercing fragmentation rounds at 4.9 rounds per minute. Now onto Glenn's entry, the C10A1TD2-150 Carver. What is it with these long names? It costs 4,985 materials, which means that 2 of them can be spawned in. It is the only other vehicle in this tournament that has a 2-block center. However, I'm still considering it 7 meters wide, because in this tournament I'm counting applique panels as being half a block. It is actually the largest vehicle in this tournament, coming in at 7 blocks wide by 7 blocks long by 4 blocks tall. However, it is actually quite a bit longer than that because of this front shield and this back anti-flipping device that aren't counted as part of the hull. It is armed with one of the most powerful weapons in this tournament, a hull-mounted 121mm APS cannon firing HESH shells at 36.9 rounds per minute. If I activate the cutaway creator, you can actually see that most of this vehicle is taken up by that enormous APS gun. If I open up the AI tab, you'll notice that there is no behavior selected. This is because this vehicle is completely breadboard controlled. I don't know how breadboards work, so I can't tell you what it's supposed to do. However, here is the breadboard, so you can figure it out yourself. Now, onto 3D Wrecker's entry, the Tankette. It costs 3,332 materials, meaning that 3 of them can be spawned in. It's 7 meters long by 5 meters wide by 3 meters tall, and oddly enough, its front is actually the least armored part of this tank. It's armed with a 120mm APS cannon, firing APHE pen depth rounds at 12.4 rounds per minute. Also, it's got a rangefinder on its turret, even though auto detect is set to max for this tournament. I've talked to 3D Wrecker about this, and turns out he just likes the way it looks, and this is decoration. And its AI is set up with the tank broadside AI routine with completely default settings. Now onto Gear's entry, which are the Operator A and the Operator B. Ignore this blueprint, this is just me removing all the mimics, which makes it easier to check if it's rules compliant. They each cost 2,448 materials, meaning that 4 of them can be spawned in. They are identical except for the AI, so I'm just going to show Operator A. It is 7 meters long by 5 meters wide by 3 meters tall, and is then extremely mimic heavy, as you can see here. Replica of the Russian T-34 tank. It's armed with a 179mm APS cannon firing pure HE rounds at 5.5 rounds per minute. And, like Glenn's vehicle, it is completely breadboard controlled. Again, since I don't know anything about breadboards, I'm just going to show it here and you can figure it out yourself. Now, onto Captain Ironlad's entry, the Boombox Mark I. It costs 3,976 materials, meaning that only 2 of them can be spawned in. It is quite a large tank at 7 meters long by 5 meters wide by 4 meters tall, and is completely covered up by mimics. No, actually, if you look at a version without mimics, it is completely different. It has almost no armor and all its internals are jammed at the back. The rest of the space is dedicated to this massive, well, massive for this tournament, cram cannon. Speaking of which, it is armed with a 2,000mm 1,200 pack APHE cram cannon. Naturally, with such a powerful shell, its reload time is ridiculous at 32 seconds, meaning it's only going to be able to get off 9 shells each round. However, each one of those 9 shells is going to delete anything it touches. Its AI is set up to, naturally, point at the enemy, because otherwise that cram cannon would be useless, and is set to stay at a distance of 150 meters. Jiyoshi's entry consists of the Ice Cold and Icy Repair. The Ice Cold cost 6,524 materials, and the Icy Repair cost 1,060 materials, meaning that 1 Ice Cold can be spawned in, along with 3 Icy Repairs. The Ice Cold is 6 meters long by 5 meters wide by 4 meters tall. By the way, if you've noticed that things look a little different, I've had to change my graphics settings because at my usual settings, the paint on the Ice Cold is blindingly white. The Ice Cold has this massive turret that fills up the entire back part of the tank, which houses a 120mm advanced cannon that fires at 51 rounds per minute. I forgot to mention this earlier, it's firing test shells, and it's electric powered. By the way, this bit here isn't clipping, it's just a mimic. The Icy Repair is this adorable little tank. Well, little, it's 7 meters wide by 5 meters long by 2 meters tall, which makes it actually pretty big for this tournament. Its original purpose was to repair the Icy Cold, which you can tell by these material storage containers on its sides, and it's painted with the same blindingly white paint. It is armed with 2 rams and a single 64-pounder simple cannon. The Ice Cold's AI is set up to point at the enemy and maintain a distance of 400 meters, and is also set up not to retreat if it's too close, while the Icy Repair's AI is set up to point at the enemy and maintain a distance of 350 meters, and it is set up to retreat when it's too close. Sean Reed's entry consists of the Scorpion drone and the Biting Midge drone. The Scorpion drone costs 4,172 materials, and the Biting Midge drone costs 1,664 materials, meaning that 2 Scorpion drones can be spawned in, as well as 1 Biting Midge drone. The Scorpion drone is 6.5 meters long, 7 meters wide, and 3.5 meters tall. It's electric powered, has a layer of glass in between the armor and the internals, and it has an RTG. Sean Reed's entries are the only vehicles in this tournament that have RTGs. This means that they won't have to worry about having less power as the battle drags on, like other electric tanks. However, this does come at a cost of, well, the high cost of RTGs. It is armed with 3 rams and a big high explosive mine. The Biting Midge drone is 7 meters long by 3 meters wide by 3 meters tall. It is the only other vehicle in this tournament to have an RTG, which has the same advantages and disadvantages as I mentioned earlier. Its engine is completely exposed, and it's armed with 3 60mm autocannons. The Scorpion drone is set up to point at the enemy and maintain a distance of 225 meters, while the Biting Midge drone is also set up to point at the enemy and maintain a distance of 260 meters. Sanguis Luis's entry is the Lil Tangina. It costs 1,946 materials, meaning that 5 of them can be spawned in. It is 7 meters long, 7 meters wide, and 3 meters tall. It has this wide but really flat turret that houses a 120mm APS which fires HESH rounds at 4.6 rounds per minute, and its AI is set up to circle the enemy at a distance of 400 meters. Doom Agent 13's entry includes the BB tank, the Bee, the Fly Swatter, the Mosquito, and the Wasp. He also sent in the Tumble tank in case one of the others failed to meet the rules. They cost 770 materials, 845 materials, 1,565 materials, 945 materials, and 845 materials respectively, and he has told me to just spawn in 2 of each. They are all built off of the same basic hull, which is 4 meters long, 2 meters wide, and 1 meter tall. Removing the metal plates that cover the top, you can see that inside there's just an electric engine, the AI, local weapon controller, failsafe, and an ammo box. They all also have the same AI, which is this tank broadside AI with a minimum range of 100 meters and a maximum range of 400 meters. For all of the other entries in this showcase, I would look through each of the vehicles individually. However, because there are so many vehicles in this entry, and because they're all built off of the same basic hull, I'm just going to spawn them all in a line here and just go through them at the same time. This one is the BB tank. It is armed with only a single 50 cal machine gun. This one is the Bee. It is armed with 2 60mm autocannons. This one is the Fly Swatter. It is armed with 1 40mm simple weapon thing. This one is the Mosquito. It is armed with 2 30mm assault cannons. And this one is the Wasp. It is armed with 2 simple lasers. And as you can see here, they are all set up with the exact same AI. This is my entry. It is something I just threw together quickly so I could have 16 entries for a full double elimination roster. It consists of the hovercraft and the land boat, which cost 1,278 materials and 1,723 materials respectively, meaning that 5 hovercraft and 2 land boats can be spawned in. The land boat is the maximum size allowed, coming in at 7 meters long by 7 meters wide by 4 meters tall. It is armed with a single shard cannon, has a sail, and an interior. The hovercraft is 7 meters long by 3 meters wide by 3 meters tall. As you can tell by the propeller and the jet engines freaking out, it is steered by changing the roll angle of the propulsion components. It is armed with two 64-pounder simple cannons. The land boat is set up to broadside the enemy at all default settings, and the hovercraft is set up to point at the enemy and maintain a distance of 200 meters. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching.